Hey there, and welcome back to the Grease Monkey channel. Today we're going to be doing a little time lapse of this little girl here, or a woman, I should say. Alright, so first we start off with a sketch, and I like to go through these drawings through refinement. So this one would just be a quick sketch. I do it with a pencil, and I just let it loose. I try not to pay attention to the lines. I'm trying to get an overall shape and block out where everything lies, like all the proportions and things. From here, I like to set up my materials, and the materials I like to set up, I have a specific naming scheme to make it easier to read when it's on there in the panel. So what I do is I put the ST for stroke in front of the name, and then I put FI for fill. So it'd be like FI hair, so that's the fill, so that would be like the solid color, and ST's the stroke. When I do my sketch, I also like to try and put different elements on different layers. So I'll put the hair, the clothes on their own separate layers. And I also like to use a different color. I feel like it makes it easier to really see the shapes and start really blocking it out. And with the materials, naming it, since the materials can get pretty complicated when you start using a lot of materials, there's also vertex colors, which we'll be covering at the end. So right here, I'm going to be doing the second refinement. It's like a second pass, so I get like the pen and fill, and I start lining out and blocking out all the elements I had made before in the sketch. I just use a standard white color and a stroke. I put on the stabilized stroke in the pen settings, and I just go bit by bit. Now, for the materials, I like to do something similar with, the layers. I like to do something similar like the materials. For CO would be color, and OL is outline. So, and SK for sketch. So it just makes it easier to also read your layers. So right now I got a basic outline here, just all in one color. And everything is, in this part, I still wouldn't think too much about it. I would try to, if you see any mistakes, just go by and just make sure that it's all blocked out correctly, because really I go in and I take out the hair and I go into the edit mode and I delete and I stretch and I copy. Some points it feels like I'm just taking little blocks of drawings and putting it together instead of just doing a consistent drawing, which is like the powerful thing about Blender. You can just draw an element, move it around, stretch it, size it up, and it happens really quickly. I was having a lot of trouble with the eyes. I don't know what's happening. I'm usually pretty good with eyes. When I draw with my pen, my ballpoint pens, eyes are the things I draw the most. So it's weird that I couldn't get it here. So I ended up just moving on, and I wasn't too happy with the collar of the shirt. So I did look up some reference on that. Now we want to start blocking in the colors. So a good tip for this is if you use the fill tool, you can hold control and close sections of lines so that the fill tool doesn't overflow to the rest of the canvas. You see that the outline is white, so what I did to change this is I use an effect in the panel on the right. It's called tint, and I use the gradient option here in my settings here, and when you put the object to an empty, it'll change depending on where the empty is. You can use any object. That gives the outline a much nicer transition, so it's a little darker red. It's going into purple at the top and then darker blue at the bottom. I think it gives it a nice, balances out the rest of the colors. This is me trying to mess with the tint tool, seeing if I can use it on the fill, like for the shirt. Now it's just me experimenting with some different effects, which I totally suggest you should do. Alright, this is me doing the same tint effect on the fill for the shirt here. And I made it so it goes from a light red to a dark red. I plan in the future not to rely on this technique too often and really start learning how to shade. I'm really using it as a crutch right now, just so I can finish this this artwork. But I don't think it looks too bad. So we're gonna start coming up to being able to use vertex paint, and vertex paint works a little bit differently than just using the materials. So what I like to do is I like to create two materials, one called vertex stroke and one called vertex fill. And these two materials make it so I can now use the little option right there next to the purple there, which is vertex paint, and I can color my painting without using the materials and just picking from the color picker up there at the top. To start creating the shadows, I make another layer and I make the blending mode to multiply, and then I use the vertex material, the vertex paint or vertex stroke or vertex fill, and I just start painting right on top of everything. And since the blend mode is on multiply, it darkens what's underneath it, as you see here. And you can do the same thing with highlights, but just change it to add for the blend mode. Still need a lot of practice doing the shading for these characters. Have a lot of trouble, but I think it turned out all right. I definitely haven't gone back to do the eyes, but I definitely will. I'm pretty much tired with this painting by this point. That's me trying to make the eye. I got frustrated, so I just copied it, distorted it so it can fit on the left side. Still didn't look right. This is all in edit mode, just moving it around. That's me trying a million times to get an eyebrow right. Still needs a little work. Should have used some reference on that, really. Coloring the lips, creating other materials, figuring out how to shade it. I lost just about all my steam by this part, so I didn't even try too hard on these eyes. Just gave it a color, made sure it had pupils. For the background, I use a gradient, and this is the node setup that I used for that. You just make sure you use the nodes inside of the shader graph and go to world, or node shaders, whatever that panel's called. Maybe confusing it with the Unity shader graph. Shader nodes. And that's just about it with this painting. It was just nice and quick. It took me about 3 hours to make. This is all condensed into 10 minutes. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you learned something from those tips, and I was able to help you get an aha moment with one of those tips there. I'm going to be making more of these videos soon. please leave a comment below, and thank you for watching.